Hey guys, welcome to another My Friendly IT Guide video. In this episode, I'm going to show you some very basic, simple PowerShell commands. Basically, the loop, the while loop and the for loop. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's just type in CLS to clear the screen. And let's start off with a very basic while loop. So we've got while true. Let's say write host, which means it's going to output to the screen hello, and we can put in a sleep of 1 and press enter. Now every 1 second it's going to say hello. Pretty simple. I will post some of this code up on my website, myfriendlyitguide.com. Okay, now let's see what happens if I omit putting in the sleep. So basically I can just push up, or I can type in history and it'll show me the previous commands that I've used. So if I just push up, I can use the arrows to modify some of the lines that are in this code, and I can delete that. Now if I press enter here, there's no longer a sleep of 1 second between going through the loop. So it's just going to infinitely go berserk. Let's have a look. Boom. You can see the scroll bar here. Look at it disappearing. We're talking about 10,000 hellos and now, because it's just hit the buffer and it's going to go crazy. So it's just, you can click anywhere on the screen as long as you've got edit mode, quick edit mode turned on. So right click properties, options, quick edit mode here. Make sure that's ticked, and you can just tick things. You can select things, right click copy, and then you can paste them. So I can copy all that, right click, paste, and we're getting lots of errors because we're just copying and pasting gobbledygook to the screen. So let's clear the screen. What we can do is we can start with some basic array and variable kind of code. So let's say, now a variable is basically just a thing. Okay, imagine a dining table and you've got apples and cups and plates and cutlery and things. They're all things. So that's called object-oriented programming. And a variable is basically anything. It has size, length, width, dimensions, breadth. It's got weight. You can change its color. You can customize it to anything. It can be anything you want. At the moment, I'm going to create a variable called variable. Pretty original. And we're going to give that a number of 0. So now if I use variable, I'm about to sneeze. If I do variable get type, and I did sneeze. If I do get type, then it's showing me that it's actually an integer of 32 bits. So perfect. We can now do what we did before, which is start a while loop. And by putting in the condition true, it basically true is always true. Okay, true can't be false because it's true. So while something is true, while true is true, I should say, we're going to increment the variable, which we can basically do ++, or we can say variable equals variable +1. And so let's do it the long way, variable equals variable +1. And then let's say we want to output the number, so write host variable. And we're going to put in a sleep because we don't want it to go berserk again. So now every 1 second, it's going to count. Pretty cool. This is very useful. It sounds basic, but this is extremely useful even in the most complex code. So this time let's do a little bit of a tricky thing. We're going to push up arrow and we're going to put a if clause. So let's push up here. So to make a new line, I used Shift Enter. Shift Enter allows me to enter that, to modify that chunk of code that we're seeing here. We're going to say if the variable equals, we can use equals, EQ. We can say GE is greater than or equal to, or we can use GT is greater than, or LT for less than, LE less than equal to. If the variable is equal to let's say 10, we're going to break out of this infinite while loop, which would otherwise go forever. So if I press enter now, we need to reset the variables. So what we're going to do is modify this code, shift enter. I'm going to, because this is now a chunk of code and the variable is retaining its value, we're not resetting it at any point, I'm actually going to add that variable equals 0 at the beginning. So now the chunk of code is variable is a brand new thing and we're giving it the value of 0. Okay, while true is true, which it always is, infinite loop, variable will equal whatever variable is plus 1. So if it was 2, now it's 3. If it was 3, now it's 4, and so on. And we're going to output that to the screen by the write host command. And then if the variable equals 10, we're going to break. Now break breaks out of any loop, any while loop, for loop. Continue is the opposite, where continue will bypass the rest of the code in a loop and circle back to the top of the loop. I'll get to that a bit later. But let's have a look at what this code now does. So if we press enter, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And look at that, it broke, I should say. It broke out of the loop. And that's a while loop. Let's do a very quick for loop. Let's do it again. Variable. I don't think I can scroll up. I can. Okay. Variable equals 0. Now, let's do for. Now, a for loop has a few components to it. It's a little bit more advanced than a while loop, but it's quite straightforward once you get the hang of it. So what we're going to do is say for. Actually, let's forget the variable equals 0. Let's forget variable altogether for this for loop. Okay, so let's have a look at the for loop. So we're going to type in for, which is the kind of loop, and we're going to use a new variable called myvar, my variable. And we're going to set its initial state at the for loop to be 0. Now the next step is for the condition while for the for loop to continue iterating and just keep cycling through. So until this is met, it's going to keep going through the loop. So keep going through the loop until myvar, while myvar is less than or equal to 10. Let's say less than this time. So when it hits to 9, it's going to break out of it. And every time it gets, so the for loop is going to be this much code. And every time it gets through the code and gets to the bottom, it's going to circle back to the top of the loop, and there's a condition that happens then. Do you want to increment myvar, maybe decrement it, reduce it, maybe go forwards by 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it is. But in this case, we're just going to go myvar plus plus, which is just increment by 1. So basically here we've got a basic for loop that says my variable equals 0. Continue the loop while myvar is less than 10, and at each iteration of the loop, increment myvar by 1. So now we're going to write host to output myvar, and we're going to sleep for 1 second between iterations so that it's not lightning fast, but I'll show you what happens if we get rid of that. And there we go. So 0, 1, 2, and it's going to get to 9 and break. Probably should have used the forgotten the sleep command because it would have been faster. Okay, there we go. Now, if we do that without the sleep command, I'm just going to delete that line. Instant. There we go.